Extinction horizon. The void between stars had never seemed so dark to Captain Thela. From the observation deck of the Alliance cruiser Eternal Light, she watched as her homeworld burned. Arbarea, once covered in sprawling crystal forests and floating cities, now crumbled under waves of destruction that swept methodically across its surface. The enemy ships, if they could even be called ships, hung in orbit like oil spills against the stars, absorbing all light, reflecting nothing. Final evacuation numbers confirmed, Captain, reported her first officer, Neck. The Valerian's multifaceted eyes dimmed with grief. 17 million survivors, out of a population of 12 billion. Thela's inner membranes closed reflexively over her eyes, a biological response to extreme stress her species had evolved over millennia. When they reopened, she forced herself to look again at the dying world. "The void doesn't leave survivors," she said quietly. "Only witnesses." For 3 standard cycles, the entity that the Alliance simply called the Void had methodically consumed the galaxy. It began at the outer rim, devouring colony worlds so distant that the core systems initially dismissed the reports as exaggerations or isolated incidents. By the time the Galactic Alliance Council recognized the threat, 5 member species had already been reduced to refugee fleets. The Alliance had stood for 20,000 years, 17 sentient species, over 10,000 inhabited worlds, technology that could reshape planets and harness the power of suns. None of it mattered against the Void. Their weapons passed through the enemy vessels as if firing into empty space. Their shields collapsed under weapons that seemed to unravel reality itself. "Captain, we've received new coordinates from Fleet Command," Neck announced. "All remaining Alliance vessels are ordered to regroup at Proxima Station." "A last stand," Thela murmured. She wasn't surprised. Proxima Station orbited the Alliance capital world of Illumina. If it fell, the Alliance would effectively cease to exist. "Set course, maximum speed, and prepare a data package of everything we've recorded here. If we don't make it to Proxima, perhaps someone else will." The journey took 30 hours. 30 hours during which emergency broadcasts continued to pour in from across the galaxy. The Void advanced inexorably toward the core systems, leaving nothing behind but dead worlds and scattered debris. The Eternal Light arrived at Proxima Station to find the remnants of the once mighty Alliance fleet, barely 200 vessels where once thousands had patrolled. Grand Admiral Zorik, a massive Tyrillian whose exoskeleton showed signs of battle damage, greeted Thela upon her arrival at the command center. "Captain Thela, we feared you lost with Arbarea. The planet is gone." "Admiral, my ship managed to escort some evacuation vessels, but..." She left the sentence unfinished. Zorik's mandibles clicked softly in the Tyrillian gesture of mourning. "You did what you could, as we all have." He gestured toward the massive holographic display dominating the center of the command room. "The Void will reach us within 6 hours. Every remaining Alliance vessel has been called here. This is where we make our stand." The plan was simple, born of desperation. Concentrated fire from the entire fleet, focusing on a single point on each Void vessel. The hope, fading with each failed engagement, was that enough energy directed at a precise location might reveal some weakness. "We've also dispatched the Whisper of Hope," Zorik added quietly, referring to the fastest vessel in the Alliance fleet. "It carries seed banks, cultural archives, and genetic samples from all member species. If there's anywhere in this galaxy the Void hasn't reached, perhaps something of us will survive." The alarm sounded precisely 5 hours and 23 minutes later. The Void had arrived early. "All vessels, assume defense formation Delta," Zorik commanded, his voice steady despite the circumstances. "Remember the targeting protocols. Concentrate fire on designated points only." Thela returned to the Eternal Light, taking command as her ship moved into position within the defensive sphere surrounding Proxima Station. On her view screen, space itself seemed to darken as the first wave of Void vessels appeared, not through conventional means, no hyperspace window or warp signature. They simply were not there, and then they were. Weapons lock established, reported her tactical officer. All ships in our battle group are synchronized. Fire. The Alliance fleet unleashed everything they had. Quantum lances, gravity disruptors, plasma cannons, weapons that could shatter moons or sterilize planets, converged on the approaching enemy. For a brief moment, Thela allowed herself to hope. The void vessels absorbed it all, unaffected. No effect on target integrity, her tactical officer reported, voice cracking. They're launching countermeasures. The void's weapons defied understanding. They fired no projectiles, emitted no energy beams. Instead, reality around their targets simply unwound. Alliance vessels didn't explode or burn. They unraveled, coming apart at the atomic level, dissolving into component particles that scattered into the void. Evasive pattern Sigma. Thela ordered as her ship shuddered under an attack. Redirect power to engines. The Eternal Light banked sharply, narrowly avoiding the fate of 3 other vessels that disintegrated nearby. The Alliance formation was breaking apart, discipline giving way to survival instinct. Admiral Zorik is ordering all ships to protect the evacuation from Proxima Station, her communications officer announced. Civilian transports are launching now. Thela knew it was futile. Even if they escaped, where would they go? The galaxy was burning, system by system, world by world. There was nowhere left to run. We'll cover the evacuation route, she decided. Position us between the transports and the closest void vessel. As her crew complied, a strange alert sounded from the sensor station. Captain, I'm detecting an anomalous reading at the edge of the system, reported the sensor officer, a Kylan whose antennae were vibrating with confusion. I don't recognize the signature. The void. Thela asked sharply. No, something else. It's generating energy readings beyond anything in our database. The main view screen shifted to show a distant point of space where something impossible was happening. Space itself appeared to be folding, creating a distortion that seemed to bend light around it. From this rift emerged a ship, a single ship, unlike anything the Alliance had ever built. Angular and massive, its hull comprised of overlapping geometric patterns that seemed to shift and reconfigure as they watched. No visible engines, no conventional weapons arrays, yet it radiated power in a way that made even void vessels seem primitive by comparison. It's transmitting, the communications officer said in disbelief, on all Alliance emergency frequencies. Put it through, Thela ordered. The voice that filled the bridge was calm, measured, speaking perfect Alliance standard with an accent Thela couldn't place. Attention Alliance vessels. This is Captain Ilara Chen of the United Earth Ship Defiance. We've been monitoring your situation. Hold position and continue evacuation efforts. We will engage the hostile force. Earth. A word from ancient history lessons, a footnote in galactic records. Humanity. A promising species that had made first contact with the Alliance nearly 1,000 years ago, only to mysteriously withdraw from galactic affairs shortly after. They were presumed extinct or regressed to pre-space civilization after their home system became unreachable, surrounded by what Alliance scientists could only describe as spatial distortions of unknown origin. That's impossible, Thela whispered. Humans vanished centuries ago. Yet the evidence was before her. The massive ship, the Defiance, moved with impossible grace for its size, accelerating directly toward the Void Fleet. The Alliance officers watched in stunned silence as a single vessel did what their entire fleet could not. It attacked. The human ship didn't fire conventional weapons. Instead, sections of its hull reconfigured, opening geometric patterns that emitted waves of energy that somehow mirrored the Void's own weapons. Where those waves touched Void vessels, the darkness receded. For the first time, the enemy seemed to recoil. They're actually hurting them, Thela's tactical officer said in disbelief. All Alliance vessels, came Captain Chen's voice again. We are creating a corridor to our position. Bring your evacuation transports and remaining warships to these coordinates. We can provide protection. Admiral Zoric's voice joined the channel. Unknown vessel, identify your species and intentions clearly. A brief pause, then. We are human, Admiral. We've been fighting the entity you call the Void for centuries within our own isolated space. We apologize for our absence, but we couldn't risk leading them to you before we had developed effective countermeasures. Now that they've found you anyway, we're here to help. As if to emphasize the point, the Defiance unleashed another wave of its strange energy, causing 3 void vessels to distort and collapse in on themselves. Countermeasures, Zoric demanded. What are they? Not over an open channel, Admiral, Chen replied. Bring your people to us. There isn't much time. Thela watched as the Defiance carved a path through the Void fleet, creating a safe corridor exactly as promised. The remaining Alliance vessels, following Zoric's commands, began escorting evacuation ships toward the human vessel. Set course to follow the flagship, Thela ordered, and prepare to receive evacuees if needed. As the eternal light fell into formation, Thela couldn't help but wonder where these humans had been all this time, and how they had developed weapons capable of fighting the Void when the combined technological might of 17 advanced civilizations had failed. The Defiance grew larger in her view screen as they approached. Up close, its hull was even more fascinating. A material that seemed to exist partially outside normal space, geometries that changed and shifted in ways that should have been structurally impossible. Captain, her communications officer called out, we're being hailed by the human vessel. Captain Chen is requesting to speak with you specifically. Surprised, Thela nodded. Put her through to my private channel. The face that appeared on her screen was undeniably human, a species Thela had only seen in historical archives. Female, with features that suggested genetic heritage from several of Earth's ancient cultures. Her eyes, however, were what caught Thela's attention. They held a depth and knowledge that seemed impossible for such a short-lived species. Captain Thela, Chen said with a slight bow of her head, your reputation precedes you. Your tactical innovations at the Battle of Vega Proxima are still studied by our strategists. You know of me. Thela couldn't hide her surprise. We've been watching the Alliance for centuries, Captain. We never truly left. Chen's expression grew solemn. We discovered what you call the Void in our own expeditions beyond known space. They followed us home, nearly destroyed us. We had to change to survive. Change how? Thela asked. Chen smiled faintly. That's a conversation better had in person. Admiral Zoric and the remaining Alliance leadership are being brought aboard the Defiance. I'd like you to join them. There's much to explain and very little time. As the Eternal Light docked with the massive human vessel, Thela felt something she hadn't experienced since the Void first appeared. Hope. It was fragile, perhaps unfounded, but the alternative was extinction. The humans had returned, and they knew how to fight. Echoes of Earth. The interior of the UES Defiance defied conventional understanding. As Captain Thela followed her escort through corridors that seemed to subtly reconfigure themselves, she struggled to make sense of what she was seeing. The walls possessed a strange fluidity, not quite solid but not energy either, a material that existed in a state between states. It's called quantum architecture, explained her guide, a human officer named Lieutenant Reyes. The ship adapts to need and circumstance. It's partially alive, in a way. Thela's inner membranes flickered rapidly, her species equivalent of astonishment. Living technology. The Alliance experimented with bionic integration, but nothing of this scale. Not exactly living, Reyes clarified. More like responsive. The materials exist partially in multiple dimensional states simultaneously. Before Thela could process this information, they arrived at what appeared to be a command center. Unlike the rigid military precision of Alliance vessels, this space flowed organically around a central holographic projection. Admiral Zoric was already there, along with representatives from 12 Alliance species, all that remained of the leadership. Captain Chen stood at the center, her uniform a deep blue that seemed to absorb and redirect light in subtle ways. She nodded respectfully as Thela entered. "Captain, welcome. We were just beginning." The holographic display shifted, showing a three-dimensional map of the galaxy. Vast sections were highlighted in red, territories already consumed by the void. "What you call the void," Chen began, "we know as the entropy wave. It's not a species or civilization as you might understand it. It's a fundamental breakdown of reality itself, a cancer in the fabric of space-time." Zoric's mandibles clicked impatiently. "Whatever it is, it's destroying everything in its path. You claim to have weapons against it." "Not weapons in the conventional sense," Chen replied. "The entropy wave cannot be destroyed by conventional means because it exists outside normal physical laws. It consumes energy, matter, even space itself. What we developed is more accurately described as a counterfrequency." The display changed to show the strange geometric patterns Thela had observed on the Defiance's hull. "When humanity first encountered the wave 1,000 years ago, it nearly destroyed us," Chen continued. "We lost Earth, our homeworld. The few million survivors fled to our colony worlds, but the wave followed. We realized conventional technology would never be sufficient. So you isolated yourselves," Thela said, understanding dawning. "The spatial distortions around your territory, you created them." Chen nodded. "A quarantine of sorts. We couldn't risk leading the wave to the rest of the galaxy until we had a defense. We spent centuries developing technology that could operate on the same principles as the wave itself, existing partially outside normal spacetime. We had to fundamentally change our understanding of physics, biology, even consciousness." "You changed yourselves," observed a Meridian counselor, her silver skin reflecting the holographic light. "Physically." For the first time, Thela really looked, at the humans around her. They appeared normal at first glance, but there was something subtly different about their movements, a fluidity that seemed too perfect. Their eyes held awareness that seemed to process information faster than natural evolution would allow. "We had to adapt," Chen acknowledged. "Neural interfaces, genetic modifications, quantum consciousness integration. What you see are the descendants of those who survived Earth's fall. We're still human, but evolved." "And now you've returned," Zoric said. "Why now? Half our worlds are already gone." A shadow crossed Chen's face. "We didn't know the wave had found you until it was too late. Our quarantine worked too well, limited our awareness of galactic events. By the time we detected the wave's expansion into Alliance space, it had already consumed your outer systems. We came as soon as we could." The holographic display shifted again, showing the Defiance at the center of a complex geometric pattern. "What matters now is the counterattack," Chen continued. "The Defiance is the first of our new phase shift vessels, capable of deploying counter-resonance fields that can disrupt the wave's cohesion. But one ship isn't enough to save the galaxy. We need your help." "Our help?" Thela couldn't hide her skepticism. "Our most advanced weapons were useless." "Not your weapons," Chen clarified. "Your knowledge. The wave adapts quickly. Every time we fought it, it's learned from the encounter. We need information about its behavior in Alliance space. Attack patterns, propagation vectors, anomalies you've observed. And we need volunteers." "Volunteers?" Zoric's carapace bristled. "For what?" "The counter-resonance technology requires alignment with conscious minds," Chen explained carefully. "Human neural architecture is compatible with our systems, but the wave is attacking your species, your worlds. The defense must incorporate your perspectives, your conscious patterns. We need volunteers from each of your species to help us calibrate the resonance fields." A heavy silence fell over the room as the Alliance leaders processed this request. It sounded dangerously like the neural experiments the long-extinct Scythians had conducted millennia ago. Attempts to merge consciousness with machine that had ended in madness and death. "You're asking us to trust technology we don't understand," Thila finally said, "to link our minds with your machines." Chen's gaze met hers directly. "Yes, I understand your hesitation, but consider the alternative." The holographic display shifted once more, showing projections of the wave's advance. At current rates, the entire galaxy would be consumed within a standard year. "We'll do it," came a quiet voice. Counselor Lyra of the Arborians stepped forward, her bark-like skin still bearing the ceremonial mourning patterns for her fallen world. "My species is already facing extinction. If there's even a chance to save what remains, I volunteer." One by one, other leaders stepped forward. Within moments, only Zorik and Thila remained hesitant. "Captain Chen," Thila said carefully, "you speak of counter-resonance fields and phase-shift technology, but what you're describing violates fundamental laws of physics as we understand them." "The wave already violates those laws," Chen pointed out. "That's why conventional weapons fail against it." Thila pressed on. "What aren't you telling us? What's the cost of this technology?" A brief silence fell before Chen sighed. "Perception, reality as you understand it will change. The volunteers will see the universe differently afterward. Not worse, not better, just different. The human mind can adapt to this with proper preparation. We don't know if your species can do the same." "You're asking us to change what we are," Zorik rumbled. "The wave will erase what you are entirely," Chen countered. "We're offering a chance to fight back. But yes, there is a cost." Thela stepped forward. "I volunteer." Zorik's compound eyes swiveled toward her in surprise. "My world is gone, Admiral," she said quietly. "If there's even a chance to prevent that fate for others, the risk is worth it." Preparations moved quickly after that. The volunteers, 23 representatives from 17 species, were taken to a specialized chamber deep within the Defiance. The room was unlike anything Thela had imagined, a perfect sphere whose walls seemed to phase in and out of conventional reality. Captain Chen personally oversaw the procedure. "The process is not painful," she explained as Thela and the others were positioned in reclined chairs arranged in a circle. "You'll experience a sensation of expansion, your consciousness extending beyond normal parameters. Don't fight it. Allow yourself to perceive." Strange, elegant devices were affixed to their heads, not invasive implants but external constructs of the same shifting material as the ship itself. Thila felt a momentary anxiety, quickly suppressed. There was no turning back now. "Beginning neural resonance calibration," announced a human technician. At first, Thila felt nothing. Then, a subtle vibration seemed to pass through her mind. Not sound, not sensation, but something between. Her perception expanded, layer by layer, until suddenly, she could see it. The wave, not as ships or weapons, but as a fundamental disruption in the fabric of existence, a cancerous wrongness spreading through reality. And she could see the counter-resonance fields generated by the Defiance, complex geometries of energy and consciousness that preserved the proper order of spacetime. Most shockingly, she could perceive the other volunteers, not physically, but as patterns of thought and consciousness, each unique to their species yet interconnected through the resonance field. And beyond them, something else, human minds, hundreds of them throughout the ship, linked in ways that organic evolution had never intended. When the process ended and the devices were removed, Thela found herself changed. The universe looked the same, yet she perceived additional layers to it, patterns and connections invisible before. "You've done well," Chen said, helping her to stand. "Better than we expected. Your mind is remarkably adaptable, Captain." "What happens now?" Thela asked, her voice sounding strange to her altered perception. "Now we fight back." The plan was audacious. Using data gathered from the Alliance and the newly calibrated resonance fields, the Defiance would strike at what Captain Chen called the nucleation point, the center of the wave's expansion. Not to destroy it, that was impossible, but to create a permanent counter-resonance that would contain it. Think of it as scar tissue, Chen explained to the assembled leaders. We can't heal the wound in reality, but we can prevent it from spreading further. The journey to the nucleation point required technology beyond conventional travel. The Defiance didn't move through space so much as it folded space around itself, a process that left Thyla's newly enhanced perception reeling. They passed through regions already consumed by the wave, dead systems where reality itself had unraveled, leaving behind only smooth, featureless voids. We're approaching the nucleation point, announced the Defiance's navigation officer, dimensional stability decreasing rapidly. On the main display, Thyla saw it, a perfect sphere of absolute nothingness, around which space itself seemed to be draining like water into a whirlpool. The source of the wave, the cancer eating the galaxy. All volunteers to resonance chambers, ordered Chen. This is what we've prepared for. In the resonance chamber, Thyla joined the others, taking her place in the circle. The devices were attached once more, but this time, the experience was different. She wasn't just perceiving, she was participating, her consciousness becoming part of the counter-resonance field. Through her expanded awareness, she could feel the Defiance changing configuration, its entire structure realigning into a perfect geometric counterpoint to the nucleation point. Human minds guided the process, but it was the Alliance volunteers who provided the crucial perspective, the unique cognitive patterns that allowed the counter-resonance to adapt to the wave's attacks. Initiating counter-resonance in 3, 2, 1. Reality seemed to flex around them. Thyla's consciousness expanded outward along with the field, touching the edge of the wave itself. It was like stepping into absolute cold, a void that sought to unmake her very existence. But she was not alone. The combined consciousness of 17 species, guided by human technology, pushed back against the unmaking. Where the wave sought to unravel reality, they reinforced it. Where it created chaos, they imposed order. For a moment that seemed to stretch into eternity, the outcome hung in balance. The wave responded to their attack, shifting its patterns to overcome the counter-resonance. But as it adapted, so did they. 17 different cognitive approaches creating a solution more complex than any single species could have devised. It's working. Someone shouted, the voice seeming to come from both the physical room and directly into Thyla's expanded consciousness. The nucleation point is stabilizing. Through her enhanced perception, Thyla saw it happening. The wave's expansion slowing, then stopping, as the counter-resonance field locked it into place. The cancer would remain, but it would spread no further. When it was finally over, and the volunteers were disconnected from the resonance field, an exhausted silence filled the chamber. They had succeeded at a cost. Thyla could see it in the other's eyes, the same fundamental change she felt within herself. They would never perceive reality quite the same way again. The nucleation point has been contained, Captain Chen announced when they reassembled in the command center. The wave's expansion has stopped. Existing affected areas remain lost, but the rest of the galaxy is safe. At what cost? Asked Zorik, looking at the volunteers with new wariness. What have you done to them? Nothing they didn't agree to, Chen replied calmly. They've been expanded. They see more of reality now. It's an adaptation, not a harm. And what happens now? Asked Counselor Lyra. Half our worlds are gone. The Alliance is in ruins. Now we rebuild, Chen said simply. Humanity has existed in isolation for too long. The quarantine served its purpose, but it's time for us to rejoin galactic society. She gestured to the view screen, where the geometric pattern of the counter-resonance field glowed steadily around the contained nucleation point. This will need monitoring, maintaining. It's a responsibility our species will share. A new alliance, Thyla suggested, understanding the implication. Chen nodded. Humanity offers its knowledge, its technology, and its protection to the surviving worlds. In return, We ask only for cooperation and understanding as we find our place in this galaxy once more. In the cycles that followed, the survivors began the long process of rebuilding. The Defiance was joined by other human vessels, emerging from their self-imposed quarantine to help secure devastated systems and rescue stranded populations. Thela, like the other volunteers, found herself in a unique position, able to understand both the traditional Alliance perspective and humanity's evolved viewpoint. They became bridges between the old and new, helping integrate human quantum technology with conventional Alliance systems. A new galactic order was forming, one built not just on the ashes of destruction, but on the foundation of shared sacrifice and cooperation. The wave had consumed half the galaxy, but in doing so, it had forced an evolution that might never have happened otherwise. Humanity had returned from the shadows of history, changed but unbroken. The Alliance had survived, diminished but wiser. Together, they looked toward a future that neither could have achieved alone. And in the vast emptiness where dead worlds once orbited living stars, the counter-resonance field continued its eternal vigil, a scar that reminded all species that some threats could only be overcome by changing oneself. We adapted, Chen had told Thela privately, after the battle was won. That's humanity's greatest strength. Not our technology, not our intelligence, our willingness to change when change is necessary, to become what we need to be. Looking out at the stars from the observation deck of the Defiance, Thela understood that this was now the legacy of all surviving species. The galaxy had burned, and from those flames, something new had emerged. Something better,